They say there are two kinds of creatures in this galaxy. Those who have met a human, and those who have not yet had the privilege. I, Commander Vrex of the Dominion Observation Fleet, belong to the first category. I did not choose this. I want that on record. I want it carved into whatever rock serves as my tombstone, because after what I witnessed on Station Helix 9, I will never, not once, sleep without one eye open again. But let me start where it matters. Station Helix 9 was, by any measurable standard, a diplomatic miracle. 43 species, 1 orbital ring, 0 wars for 6 consecutive cycles. It floated above the gas giant Murox like a crown nobody actually wanted to wear, full of bureaucrats, merchants, soldiers, and the kind of people who smile at you with too many teeth. I was assigned there as a neutral observer for the Dominion. My job was simple: watch, report, do not cause incidents, do not eat anything from the Grethely food stalls without checking the ingredient list first. Standard protocol. The humans had been on Helix 9 for about 3 cycles by the time I arrived. They operated under a joint peacekeeping arrangement with the station authority, which sounds very official and is in practice a polite way of saying, we stuck the humans in a corner and told them to behave themselves. They did not behave themselves. Not because they were violent, oh no, the humans were almost aggressively polite. They said please, they said thank you, they held doors open for species who did not have doors in their home architecture, and therefore did not understand the cultural weight of this gesture. They made hot beverages for everyone, including species whose biology was actively harmed by warmth, and they apologized profusely when those species pointed this out. But there was one human who stood out even among her kind. Her name was Sergeant Mara Voss. Now let me describe Mara Voss the way I first observed her, because first impressions matter, and mine was frankly confusing. She was small. Humans are not, as a species, the largest creatures in the galaxy. They are not even in the top 30. Mara Voss was on the smaller end of small for her species. She had dark hair. She kept pulled back in a way that suggested she had done it without a mirror and did not particularly care. She had eyes the color of old bark, the kind of brown that does not shimmer or glow or do anything interesting. It just watches things, quietly. Like it is cataloging information it does not intend to share. She wore her uniform like it owed her money. Her badge, a silver and gold Helix 9 peacekeeping insignia, sat on her left chest plate. It was regulation, it was clean, and it was, according to Station Admiral Koss of the Veth Dominion Fleet, quote, an insult to the chain of command. Admiral Koss was a Veth. The Veth are large. Their natural coloring runs from deep violet to near black, with bioluminescent patterns along their neck and jaw that flare when they are angry or trying to intimidate something. Admiral Koss had patterns that flared approximately every 4 minutes, which meant either he was in a near-constant state of fury, or he just had very bad circulation. Given what I later learned about him, I suspect both. Koss had been running Helix 9 for 2 cycles before the humans arrived. He had built himself a comfortable little empire of deference. Every species on the station knew to step aside when the Admiral walked the main corridor. Every species except, apparently, one. On the morning of the incident, I was positioned near the East Observation Ring, reviewing transit logs. I was not, technically, watching the Central Commerce Hub. I was simply facing in that general direction while my ambient audio receivers were, through no fault of my own, fully operational. Here is what happened. Admiral Koss was conducting what he called a routine inspection of the peacekeeping unit's assigned sector. What he was actually doing, and everyone on the station knew this, was looking for reasons to formally reduce the human presence on Helix 9. He had been doing this for 6 weeks. He had found nothing, because Mara Voss ran a very clean operation. This irritated him enormously. He found her standing at the edge of the Commerce Hub entrance where she was, and I cannot stress this enough, doing her job. She was monitoring a trading dispute between a Gretheli merchant and a Sullen trader involving a crate of alleged luxury goods that turned out to contain, and this is a direct quote from the manifest, compressed aromatic fungi of contested origin. She had the situation fully managed. Both parties were calm. The fungi were under restraint, which was apparently necessary, because compressed aromatic fungi of contested origin are apparently partially sentient. Admiral Koss walked up to her. He looked at her badge. He looked at her. He looked at her badge again. And then, in front of approximately 40 witnesses from 12 different species, he reached out, grabbed her peacekeeping badge, and tore it off her uniform. He held it up. His bioluminescent jaw patterns went full nova. He said, in the crisp, clipped tone of someone who has spent decades being told they are very important. "You will not display unauthorized insignia in my station. Your unit operates under our jurisdiction. You wear what we assign you to wear." Then he dropped her badge on the floor. He let it clatter on the deck plating. He smiled. He had done this to others before. I had heard about it. The smile was the part that made other species flinch. The casual, practiced cruelty of someone who knows no one is going to push back. Here is where it got interesting. Mara Voss looked at her badge on the floor. She looked at it for exactly 3 seconds. I counted. I have the recording. 3 seconds. Then she looked up at Admiral Koss, and she cracked her neck. Not quickly, not in a startled, involuntary way. Slowly, deliberately. She tilted her head to one side. There was an audible sound that I can only describe as architecture disagreeing with itself, and she straightened back up. The Grithali merchant behind her took 2 steps backward. The fungi crate began vibrating. I stopped breathing, which was unnecessary for my biology but felt appropriate. Now I want to be clear about something. I had read the standard Dominion briefing on human emotional escalation. I knew the textbook warning signs: elevated vocal pitch, increased respiratory rate, physical expansion of the chest, something called the look. The briefing described the look as a hardening of the facial features consistent with a threat assessment response. The briefing suggested that if a human gave you the look, you should, and I am quoting the actual document here, reconsider your immediate life choices. Mara Voss did not give him the look. That was worse. She gave him absolutely nothing. No elevation in breathing, no vocal pitch change, no chest expansion. She just looked at him, the way you look at a complicated piece of machinery that has just made a sound it should not have made, and you are now deciding whether it is worth fixing or whether you should simply find another machine. She said very calmly, "I am going to need you to take a step back, Admiral." Koss laughed. It was a rich, theatrical laugh designed to be heard by everyone in the hub. His entourage of 4 Veth security officers laughed with him. "You do not give orders here, Sergeant," he said. "I am not giving an order," she said. "I am giving advice." There was a pause. "There is a difference," she added, pleasantly, like she was explaining a recipe. Koss stopped laughing. He leaned in slightly. "Your unit is in violation of station decorum protocols. Your badge is not authorized, and your tone is not appropriate for addressing a flag officer." She said nothing. He leaned closer. "You are dismissed from active patrol. Effective immediately. I will have your commanding officer informed within the hour that you are to be reassigned to cargo manifest review for the remainder of your post here." She still said nothing. "Do you have anything to say for yourself, Sergeant?" She picked up her badge from the floor. She looked at it for a moment. She turned it over in her hand, and then she clipped it back onto her uniform with the quiet confidence of someone who has never, not even once in their life, actually been dismissed from anything. She looked at him. "I want you to understand something, Admiral Koss," she said. "I am being very polite right now. I am being polite because there are 43 species represented on this station, and 31 of them are watching us at this moment, and because diplomatic incidents are paperwork I do not enjoy. I am being polite because my commanding officer, Captain Dell, is a reasonable person who would prefer I handle situations like this with restraint." Koss's jaw patterns were flaring so intensely he was casting light on the nearby merchandise displays. "But," she said, and the word landed like a hatch ceiling, "if you touch my badge again, Admiral, or any part of my uniform, or any part of me, or any part of my team, I will stop being polite." She smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the kind of smile that exists purely to let you know that something with significantly more teeth is standing just behind it. "And I promise you," she said, "you will find the paperwork involved considerably less pleasant than what we have now." Koss stared at her. She stared back. The Grethali merchant had, at some point during this exchange, fully hidden behind the fungi crate. One of Koss's security officers shifted his weight almost imperceptibly, the kind of micro-movement that means the body has already run the calculation and quietly disagreed with what the brain is about to do next. Koss said nothing. He turned. He walked away. His entourage followed at the kind of speed that looks like a dignified exit, but is actually a brisk retreat. The commerce hub was completely silent for 4 full seconds. Then the Grethali merchant stood back up, brushed himself off, looked at Mara Voss, and said, "So, about the fungi?" "Yes," she said, turning back to the crate with the smooth professionalism of someone who had not, 30 seconds ago, stared down a flag officer of the Veth Dominion and made his own guards rethink their career choices. Let us talk about the fungi. I submitted my preliminary report that evening. My superior, Director Oven, read it twice. Then he sent back a single line. Define in full what you mean by cracked her neck slowly. I wrote back, I mean exactly what I said, sir, and I suggest we revise our standard human engagement briefings. He did not respond for 3 days. I believe he was also revising the briefings, but the incident was not over, not even close. Because what I had witnessed in the Commerce Hub was, as it turned out, the quiet part. What came next was not quiet at all. Koss did not forget. He never forgot. And Mara Voss, whatever else she was, had just made herself the most interesting thing on Station Helix 9. I stayed close to my observation post that night. I made sure my audio receivers were once again fully operational. You do not watch something like that and then go to sleep. You watch what comes next. Here is something the Veth do not teach in their military academies, probably because no one survived the lesson long enough to write it down. When a human tells you, calmly, with a smile, that they are currently being polite, you should treat that information the way you would treat a pressure warning on a reactor core. You do not ignore it. You do not test it. You absolutely do not go back to your office, spend 3 hours on a secure channel calling in every bureaucratic favor you have ever accumulated, and then attempt to have that human formally removed from the station by sunrise. Admiral Koss did exactly that. I found out at approximately the 4th hour of the night cycle, when my contact inside the station administrative block, a very nervous Palin Records clerk named Soto, sent me an encrypted message that read, "They are processing an emergency removal order. Human peacekeeping unit. Badge violation plus conduct unbecoming, plus about 6 other things Koss made up in the last 2 hours. Formal hearing scheduled for 0800. I stared at the message. Then I stared at it again. Then I sent back, Soto. Does Sergeant Voss know? He replied, they are not required to notify her until 0700. I sent back, does she know anyway? Long pause. Yes. I put my data pad down. I looked at the ceiling of my observation quarters. I said, out loud to no one, this is going to be magnificent. The hearing was held in Administrative Chamber 4, which is a large circular room with the kind of acoustics that make everything sound more official than it is. The seating tiers rose in concentric rings around a central floor, and every single one of those seats was full by 0750. 10 minutes before the hearing started. 43 species on Helix 9. Approximately 40 of them showed up to watch. Word travels fast when something interesting is about to happen. Word travels even faster when the interesting thing involves a human who cracked her neck at a flag officer and then, rumor had it, spent the entire night before her disciplinary hearing eating something called a protein bar and reviewing station law with the focused intensity of a creature who very much intended to still be employed by the end of the day. Admiral Koss entered at 0758, flanked by his 4 security officers and 2 Veth legal attaches who were carrying actual physical document cases, which is the kind of theatrical commitment to paperwork that tells you someone has been planning this for longer than one evening. He looked satisfied. He looked at the assembled audience and nodded, the way a performer nods before a show, confident in the material, confident in the outcome. He sat down in the presiding officer's chair. He waited. At exactly 0800, the chamber door opened. Mara Voss walked in. She was alone. No legal attaché, no document cases, no support staff. She was wearing her uniform, her badge clipped precisely where it belonged, and she was carrying a single data pad and a cup of something hot that steamed quietly as she walked. She found her designated position on the central floor, placed her cup and data pad on the provided surface with the unhurried calm of someone settling in for a meeting they are not the least bit worried about, and looked up at Admiral Koss. She nodded at him, politely. He did not nod back. The presiding legal officer, a Pellan named Councillor Drev, cleared his throat and began the formal opening. He read the charges. Badge display in violation of station uniform code. Conduct unbecoming of a peacekeeping officer. Failure to comply with a direct instruction from a flag officer. 3 supplemental charges involving procedural irregularities that were so vague even Drev seemed uncertain what they meant while reading them aloud. When Drev finished, he asked, Sergeant Voss, how do you respond to these charges? She picked up her data pad. She said, with evidence, Councillor. Koss's jaw patterns flickered. She looked at him while she said it. She looked at him the way someone looks at a door they are about to walk through. The badge in question, she began, is not as claimed an unauthorized insignia. It is a Helix 9 Joint Peacekeeping Merit Badge, issued under Section 14, Clause 7 of the Helix 9 Cooperative Charter, which was signed by the Veth Dominion. I want to make sure everyone heard that, signed by the Veth Dominion, 17 cycles ago. It is not only authorized, it is specifically mandated for display by any peacekeeping officer who has completed 60 days of joint service. She looked up from her pad. I have completed 63 days. Silence. One of Koss's legal attachés leaned over and whispered something to the other. The other one went very still. Drev said carefully, "Admiral Koss, do you wish to respond to this point?" Koss said, "The interpretation of that clause is disputed." Mara Voss said, pleasantly, "Is it? Because I have the original charter text, the Dominion co-signatory confirmation, and a direct statement from the Helix 9 Charter Office confirming the interpretation, all filed as exhibits this morning at 043. Another pause. The Grethelai merchant, who had absolutely no reason to be at this hearing, and was seated in the third tier anyway, made a sound that in his species indicated amusement. 0430, Councillor Drev repeated. "I am an early riser," she said, not apologetically, just as a fact. Koss leaned forward. "The conduct charge stands regardless of the badge matter. You spoke to me in an inappropriate manner. You issued a veiled threat to a flag officer." She tilted her head. "I gave you advice. You threatened me." "I described a possible outcome of a specific course of action," she said. "That is not a threat. That is a forecast. You may check the distinction in any communication standards manual. I recommend the Helix 9 version, which was also co-signed by the Veth Dominion." Somewhere in the upper tiers someone coughed to cover a laugh. Based on the sound, I believe it was a sullen trader, who have a very distinctive cough. They also, coincidentally, had been on the losing end of several Veth trade disputes in the past cycle. Their attendance at this hearing was not, I think, accidental. Koss's bioluminescence was doing something I had not seen before. Instead of the usual flaring anger pattern, it was pulsing in short irregular bursts, the kind of pattern that, according to Dominion behavioral studies, indicated a Veth who was recalculating rapidly and not enjoying the process. He tried a different angle. "Your unit," he said, his voice dropping to the register that had ended careers before, "operates under station authority. Station authority means my authority. You will behave in accordance with Veth command structure while you are on this station, or you will be removed from it." She let that sit in the air for a moment. Then she said, "Admiral Koss, I want to ask you something." He said nothing, which she apparently took as permission. "In the 17 cycles since the Cooperative Charter was signed, how many times has a human officer been stationed on Helix 9? He blinked. "This is irrelevant. Humor me." "None," he said, after a pause. "You are the first joint peacekeeping deployment." "Right," she said. "So everything you think you know about how this works, you are learning right now in this room, the same as everyone else." She set her datapad down. "I do not operate under Veth command structure. I operate under joint command structure, which is different and which gives me specific protections that your removal order does not account for. I am not telling you this to be difficult. I am telling you this because someone, at some point, should have told you before you filed 6 charges this morning, 4 of which are going to be dismissed in the next 10 minutes. Drevi looked at his own notes. He looked at Koss's legal team. He looked back at his notes. He dismissed 4 of the charges in the next 8 minutes, which was faster than predicted. The remaining 2, conduct and failure to comply, took another 40 minutes to unravel, during which Mara Voss produced, in order, a time-stamped recording of the Commerce Hub incident showing Koss initiating physical contact with her uniform before she said anything, a written copy of Joint Peacekeeping Guidelines specifying that peacekeeping officers were not bound by the verbal dismissal of any single flag officer without written authorization from both chain of command supervisors, and a communication from her commanding officer, Captain Dell, filed at 0445 that same morning, formally contesting the removal order on procedural grounds. 45. She had filed that at 044. I looked at Soto across the chamber. He mouthed, "I know." At some point during the proceedings, one of Koss's legal attachés quietly closed his document case, not with any announcement. He just closed it and put it on the floor and sat very still, which is the legal professional equivalent of a white flag. The second attaché lasted another 20 minutes before doing the same. By the time Drev formally suspended all remaining charges pending a full charter review, which everyone in the chamber understood was the official way of saying these charges were going nowhere, The entire hearing had lasted 1 hour and 47 minutes. Koss stood. He looked at Mara Voss. She was drinking from her cup. Whatever was in it, it was still warm. She had apparently timed the temperature of her beverage to outlast a full disciplinary hearing. I do not know if this was planning or luck. With humans I have learned not to ask the question because either answer is equally alarming, he said, very quietly, in a register meant only for her. This is not finished. She looked at him over the rim of her cup. She said, Admiral, I have been on this station for 63 days. I have resolved 14 trading disputes, 3 physical altercations, 1 incident involving the partially sentient fungi that I am still not fully cleared to discuss, and now this. I have been polite the entire time. She set the cup down. I plan to be here for another 212 days. She picked up her datapad. I will still be polite. She smiled, and it was the same smile as the day before, the one with something larger standing quietly behind it. But Admiral, I want you to understand something. I did not choose this posting. I was assigned here. I do not have a personal interest in making your life complicated. I have an interest in doing my job and going home. She walked toward the chamber exit. At the door she stopped. She turned back. But if you want complicated, she said, in the same conversational tone she might use to recommend a beverage, I can do complicated. I have 73 pages of charter text I have not used yet. She left. The chamber stayed quiet for a full 10 seconds after the door closed behind her. Then it absolutely erupted. 40 species talking at once produces a sound that is less like noise and more like a weather event. I stood in the middle of it, and I wrote 3 words in my personal log. 3 words I sent back to Director Oven before he could ask me for a full report. Those 3 words were, "Revise everything, sir." He responded within the hour. "What specifically?" I wrote back, "All of it, every briefing, every protocol, every section of the standard engagement guide that refers to humans as a mid-tier species of limited strategic significance." I paused. Then I added, "Especially that last part, burn that part entirely." Oven was quiet for a long time. Then, "What did she do, Vrex?" I looked out the observation window at the stars around Helix 9, cold and old and completely unaware of the bureaucratic war that had just been fought and decisively won inside a hearing room that smelled faintly of compressed aromatic fungi. I wrote, "She showed up on time with better paperwork." Another pause. "That is all. I thought about the neck. I thought about the smile. I thought about 043 beyond 0445 and 73 unused pages of charter text and a cup of something hot that stayed warm for 2 hours because she had planned it that way." I wrote, "That is all it needed to be, sir." Admiral Koss filed for a transfer 6 weeks later. The official reason cited was a scheduling conflict with fleet obligations. Everyone on Helix 9 knew the real reason. Nobody said it out loud. Nobody had to. The badge was still on her uniform, right where it belonged, exactly where it had always belonged. And Mara Voss went back to work the morning after the hearing, the same way she did every morning. She showed up. She did her job. She held the door open for species who did not understand the gesture. She said please. She said thank you. She carried a hot beverage. She was by every visible measure, perfectly, completely, dangerously polite. And somewhere in the Veth Dominion command records, filed under incident reports, cross-referenced under charter disputes, there is now a new section in the standard briefing documents. It is titled, Notes on Human Peacekeeping Personnel. It is 14 pages long. The very first line reads, "If they tell you they are being polite, believe them." The second line reads, "Do not touch the badge."